So we're going to be talking about that time that a horse blew up the Venetian arsenal. To give you a bit of context before we get to the horsey bits flying down on the people of Venice, we should establish that the arsenal at Venice is one of those places that's ahead of its time. It is the closest we have in the Renaissance era to sort of assembly line. And it was the source of a lot of Venice's naval dominance throughout its 1,000-year reign. And when I say proto-assembly line, I mean that there were whole sections of the arsenal's 2-mile long radius, pink brick walls, 50 feet high, guards on them all the time, that were just dedicated to, say, soaking wood in salt water so that it would be seasoned ahead of time. So when you put the bulkhead together, it's not green and splintery. Or another workshop contained inside the arsenal meant just for crafting oars, or a stern, or a keel. There were whole manufacturing wings, like the size of football fields, warehouses really, just for weaving rope, hemp into rope, and every other thing you could think of you could possibly need on a ship. This section's for making barrels. And at its heyday, the arsenal could turn out a war galley inside of a day just by, assembling the parts together and rolling out. The Venetians loved doing that trick for visiting ambassadors, and as a sort of a cherry on top of why trade with us is very good, but also don't piss us off. Hey, we just made that war galley today, and we'll probably make another one tomorrow, Ambassador so-and-so. Ambassador so-and-so immediately rethinks his position on Venice. So, that's the arsenal, which, by the way, is a loan word from Arabic, meaning manufacturing shop or place of assembly. Venice kind of got the upshot of being the major port that was close to the Islamic world during the Renaissance, and then shamelessly like to take credit for a lot of Islamic things that had already existed, but I'll get off that. Back to the horse. So, arsenal, big place, lots of people working, constant middle management, testing the ropes. Okay, well, let's see. This is up to standard, or, kicking the hull of the ship, making sure it's okay. There are also some records of sort of proto-union busting in the arsenal, which is where the workers struck and, stormed into the Doge's office heavily armed and said, hey, we haven't had our pay in a month, and we want more of it. And the Doge, of course, is like, yes, of course, yes. Well, very good, very good. And then has the leaders executed and the rest jailed, because this is an oligarchy, young man, and don't you forget it. I strayed from my point. The arsenal also manufactured other substances. The other substances, like tar, to caulk and make something waterproof, but also more explodey type substances like, gunpowder. And the arsenal is in the middle of the city of Venice. And it is a substantial part of the city of Venice at various times. So, when you manufacture gunpowder, there are gonna be accidents. And when you manufacture tons of gunpowder, those accidents go from inconvenient to catastrophe fairly quickly. The incident with the horse takes place in 1476, and it goes something like this. One fine day, there was an explosion and a horrible amount of death. And the Venetian Secret Service, or, their intelligence network, immediately goes nuts and arrests every foreign-born person within a mile of the arsenal, and anyone who looked even a little suspicious or talked with a foreigner and, puts the screws to them, like, what are you doing? Is this industrial sabotage? You're not working for Genoa, are you? And it eventually comes out that none of these people were involved in any sort of industrial espionage, but that a fellow making a delivery to the arsenal had taken a horse with iron shoes on its feet onto the cobblestones of the arsenal, and a spark from its hoof had lighted off into a giant pile of gunpowder that was just lying around, and off it goes. Well, the horse goes every which way. Bits of horse raining down for days. This actually wasn't the only time. I'm going to go over. This wasn't the only time that the arsenal exploded. It seemed to do it about every 25 years or so. The last big one actually happened to Venice during the Italian Wars in 1509. And that was from a blacksmith's hammer, you know, forge, 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 clang, spark, off it goes into the giant pile of gunpowder. You really need to think your Tetris brain into this one for maybe not putting things that can make sparks near the gunpowder. And this causes a disaster that is seen for like 3 miles. Like it's spectacular and horrible. After that, though, the Venetians are like, okay, we fixed this. We are going to put all the gunpowder manufacturing on this remote little island in the lagoon and put it nowhere near anything that can make a spark. They eventually learned your lesson, but there we are for the marvelous horrors of proto-industrialization. Exploding horses and exploding people.